Hey everybody, I'm Jack with Future Pastimes, and in this video I'm going to talk a little bit about my thoughts on episode 2 of Dune Prophecy, the HBO Max series. So the series is going to be, for this season, only 6 episodes, and I think it's important to keep that in mind because we're going to be telling one story over the course of these 6 episodes. And presumably there will be a follow-up season, but they do need to be mindful of trying to have some kind of a complete story arc in a single season, just in case. But it's interesting because this episode, like the previous one, still feels like they're setting up some chess pieces. And it has the same kind of phenomenon that you see in a lot of series, especially in recent years, where there's a mystery or several mysteries that you are slowly unraveling over the course of a season or over the course of an entire series. So there's a lot that we just don't really understand. And it's interesting for me, as somebody who is pretty well versed in the Dune universe. On the one hand, I really enjoy seeing how this story plugs into the existing Dune universe, particularly in the novels. There are some clear connections to the two Denis Villeneuve movies, but there's a lot more going on that they don't really ever get into in those movies. They don't explicitly explain, and I enjoy that we're getting some of that anyway. I think that it's interesting that they're not really dumbing it down purely for the movie audience. There's a lot here for fans of just the Frank Herbert books and for fans of the expanded universe as well. You know, there are characters and clear story elements and story beats from the Sisterhood of Dune, which is the prequel novel from the school trilogy, where they talk about the starting of the Bene Gesserit Sisterhood in Sisterhood of Dune, and a lot about how the Guild gets going in Navigators of Dune, as well as some other elements, and other things that are simultaneously have been launched in the last 100 years, like the Sook School and Mentats and things like that. So we're getting a lot of these little details that they pepper throughout the episodes, which are really nice. But it's straightforward enough because it really gets down to your classic power struggles, and the sort of thing which draws a lot of comparisons to Game of Thrones. So the different organizations and houses that are struggling to either gain power or maintain power. So what we've got going on here is we've got the Sisterhood, which has its mission of trying to manipulate everything that's going on in the Imperium. They're trying to manipulate all of the houses. They're trying to get to the point where they've got somebody from the Sisterhood is ruling the Imperium, and a lot of other little irons that they've got in the fire, because they want to control everything. Then you've got the Emperor, who is trying to rule the Imperium, but is perceived as weak and in many ways is kind of weak, a little bit indecisive, not bold at all. But I suspect that they could be setting that up for a real switch in the Emperor, where he finally, takes control of his own destiny. Possibly. It's interesting. The dynamic with his wife, too. The first episode, he was pretty dismissive of her, but she, like Lady Macbeth, has convinced him to use Desmond Hart as a tool. And when it becomes clear, so in this episode, and spoiler alert, I'm going to be talking about the episode. So if you haven't watched it and you don't want to know stuff, why are you watching this video? Get away. Come back later after you've seen it. So yes, so like Lady Macbeth, she is convincing her husband to use Desmond Hart. So Desmond Hart flat out tells the Emperor, "Yep, I killed the Richese, however you want to say it, heir who was supposed to marry the princess, the Emperor's daughter, Inez." And the Emperor, at first, he's like, "Nope, I don't want any part of this." And he locks Desmond up in a suspensor cell, which is really just a room with a really high ceiling, and he's suspended. I'm not sure. I'm not sure that's the most efficient way to hold a prisoner. It's interesting, though. But the Empress, she says, "You know what? He's got a gift, and you should be taking advantage of it." And the first way that they do that is, of course, the Duke, the Richesse Duke, demands to have Desmond turned over to him, and threatens a lot of things, like to cancel their deal, to give the Emperor all of the warships, and maybe even insinuates that he'll take greater action. And Desmond comes in and starts to burn the Duke from the inside. And I'm going to get into more about that in a second. So the Duke relents and agrees to just kind of leave and let things lie. It's interesting. When I was watching it, I was thinking, all right, I guess they can get away with this. But what was, if they didn't have Desmond Hart, what was to stop the Emperor from just saying, "All right, guards, grab him and start stabbing him with a dagger until he agrees to do what we say"? I'm not sure how it's okay for Desmond to come in the grand scheme of things, but leave your thoughts in the comments, and maybe there will be some other insight later on. It's probably not the last we've seen of this Duke. He's not going to forget that his son, burned to death, and then there was no recourse for him. So at the same time, the Reverend Mother Valia, who's running the Bene Gesserit, makes a surprise trip to Seleucus Secundus, where the Emperor is. Because she learns while on Wallach 9 that the young Duke, who is supposed to be part of their whole breeding plan, is dead. So she heads there. She's got to lock down the princess and make sure that nothing changes there. They'll sort it out later on. But she confronts Desmond, and she questions him, and he seems to be telling the truth about his objective, which is to just serve the Imperium. And then later on, they have a nice tense exchange where he explains that the best way to serve the Imperium is to eliminate the Bene Gesserit. And she attempts to use the voice on him to have him kill himself, like she did with Dorothea many years before, but he's able to resist it. And it's not clear if he was almost, she has him take out his knife, put up against his throat, but he doesn't kill himself. Is he playing her? Or was he able to just resist at the last minute? That'll be interesting to see how that plays out. So some of the stuff I really liked. I loved the fact that, while Valia was on Seleucia, she meets up with another Bene Gesserit, who we saw in the previous episode is just like a bartender, but she's got the blue eyes of a bod, which means that she's been pounding spice. Doesn't necessarily mean that she's Fremen or has even ever been to Arrakis. But it turns out that this sister, Michaela, she's a sister. She is a Bene Gesserit sister, and on top of which she is, and it seems clear that nobody else knows that interacts with her. She looks like a bartender. They don't suspect that she's a Bene Gesserit sister, but not only she's a sister, she's involved in this resistance. So in the first episode, we learned about this attack on the spice freighter, and all the spice was taken, and Desmond explains that it wasn't Fremen rebels, it was the houses, other great houses that are conspiring against the emperor, and it turns out that this rebellion is being run by the Bene Gesserit, which is interesting, and I really enjoyed that fact. And then we also learn that the Emperor's Swordmaster, the Atreides, Kieran Atreides, is also part of this conspiracy to, take out the Emperor, to take out presumably the other great houses. It's interesting what that's about, and I'll be curious to know why he is a part of that, since he is presumably part of a great house as an Atreides. And there's a nice moment where he's talking with the princess, and she explains to him that the two of them are just pawns in the power struggles of great houses and other organizations. And it seems like that strikes a nerve with him. Like, yeah, you know what? I don't like being a pawn. I'm not sure. I mean, that's another thing that we're going to have to see. What is his motivation? Why is he part of this rebellion? Was his becoming a sword master part of a long con? Was his being assigned to the Emperor's court? Is that part of it? When did he really want to turn against the Emperor? I'll be interested to see how that plays out. There was also another interesting bit of deception and manipulation where the daughter of the Duke of Richese allows herself to be seduced by the Emperor's illegitimate son, and they're both apparently pumping each other for information in a classic HBO style scene, and she plays it off like, yeah, I don't know anything, and my father doesn't find me particularly useful, but she does confide in her father what she finds out, and that Desmond, the apparent assassin of the young ducal heir, has been captured. And so that was an interesting little development there, so I enjoyed that. Meanwhile, at Wallach 9, the sisters are a little bit freaked out about things that are going on, and they're worried about some prophecy from they're basically the school's founder from years past, and they want to get some answers. And Valia thinks that the best way to do that is to have one of their young acolytes, one of the young students there, undergo the spice agony, or just the agony, because they're not really using spice. And I'll explain what I mean by that here. Because she is descended from Anarul. I believe I get that right. And so they kind of pressure her into doing it. There's a nice moment where Tula, who's Valia's sister, is talking to her, and she's always had kind of a special place in her heart for Lila, this young student, and has basically raised her. And Lila thinks of her as a mother figure. And so Tula's not crazy about having Lila undergo the agony, because she's very young. She's not super experienced yet. This is the sort of thing that you don't rush into, because it is dangerous. And though I liked the way that they did it, they're not using the water of life, which makes sense on some degree. And so they're basically mixing together a poison that has no antidote, and the only way to stop it is that as a Bene Gesserit, your body has to transmute this poison and basically break it down into harmless molecules. And in doing so, you're able to then tap into your ancestral memories on your maternal side. And through that process, that's where they want to be able to get some answers about this prophecy. So they go through it, and Lila decides, I'm going to do it. She gets some advice from two of her fellow students, one of which is like, you know what, you need to think about yourself, but the other one is like, no, you need to think about the sisterhood. And I'll be interested to see if the two of them, have it out, or what they think of the what happens to Lila, because as she undergoes the agony, she does reach those ancestral memories, but it doesn't quite work out, and she ends up dying. Not before she does give them a cryptic message something about the key is somebody who is born twice, once of blood and once of spice. And this being Dune, there's a couple of people that maybe that could apply to. Could apply to Desmond Hart. He was born normally, presumably, and then he was, consumed by a sandworm and is still alive. So how is he alive is a big question. So that could refer to him. It could refer to Paul. As Paul was the Kwisatz Haderach. He was the first one. He underwent the spice agony as a man and survived and was able to tap into ancestral memories. It could refer to his son, who becomes the God Emperor, who is the true tyrant that the Bene Gesserit are fearing, yet don't know about because it's 10,000 years into their future. So, it'll be interesting to see where they go with that. And it is interesting that they're having these things that can be connected to the Villeneuve movies in Paul Atreides, but for the book readers, we know that Paul is not really the true Kwisatz Haderach. It's really his son who, is the one who undertakes traveling down the golden path to save humanity. And all the things that the Kwisatz Haderach would be able to do, what the Bene Gesserit are trying to achieve, although they're never able to control. So that brings me back to Desmond Hart. In the last week since the first episode, there's been a lot of chatter about who he could be and how he has this ability to set people on fire from within with his brain, including half a galaxy away, because he kills the Bene Gesserit sister, who's on Wallach 9 while he's still on Seleucia. So a little bit strange. And there have been some theories. One is that I thought it was some kind of poison that he was able to get a hold of. It seems like that's not the case, especially as he came into the throne room and put the zap onto the Richese Duke. There's another theory that he's got some kind of Ixian device. I'm pretty skeptical about that because they haven't mentioned Ix or the Ixians in these two episodes, not even obliquely. They're not mentioned at all in the Villeneuve movies. So I have a hard time thinking that they're going to present this, and it's only something that book readers could possibly have guessed or would understand, unless in one of the next episodes they really do a deep dive into the Ixians and who they are and how they're tied to technology and how they flirt with the limits of technology. I mean, it's clear that they're still using technology. They have technology. There's a nice little scene where Kieran Atreides is using something to map out the entire Imperial Palace so that they can use it for whatever they're going to do in their rebellion. This is a technology that does this. They have technology, but it's AI in particular, and anything that even approaches it, anything autonomous, gives people the heebie-jeebies. So, but the Ixians are like, whatever, we're not afraid of it. We think we can control it. And there is, for somebody who is like deep into the book lore, there is a reference to something that the God Emperor says in reference to the Ixians. So it's there, but I just don't know. I don't know. I'm not feeling it yet. I'm not feeling that it's an Ixian device. I'll be kind of disappointed if it is just some ability that he has, because again, there's nothing in the Dune lore that approaches that, and it seems really strange to me, and I don't love the idea of them creating some weird new ability that just never rears its head again in 10,000 and plus years. The other thing is about who is Desmond. I mean, how does he survive this worm attack? And so, again, there's theories that maybe he's a cyborg, which again connects to Ixians by and large, or that he's a Gola. And again, I don't buy into the Gola thing either. They certainly could veer away from the literature, and I suspect when Dune Messiah comes out in a year, that if we have a Duncan Idaho Gola, it's not going to look exactly the way he's described in the book. So in the book, Hate, which is the name of that they give the Duncan Idaho Gola, Hayt, does not have normal eyes. In fact, it's just something they haven't perfected yet. And so, keeping in mind, this is 10,000 years before Dune and Dune Messiah. And so, Golas just really weren't a thing yet. They hadn't really, nailed that down yet at that point. So it's a little bit, I'm skeptical. I'm skeptical that he's a Gola. And again, because like with the Ixians, they've made no mention of the Tleilaxu. And we don't really know that they're much of a force to be reckoned with yet in this universe. So, like in the books, they're not quite called the Tleilaxu. It's just a different name. It's similar, and they're about growing organs and stuff. And so that's the path that they're on. But a full Gola of somebody, I don't know. Maybe, certainly we could see. But I think they need to do something. So maybe, the next episode or the next one, they'll do a deep dive into Tleilax and Ix, and we'll see some more of these cultures and get some clues. The fact that they're doing this mystery style and you're doling some stuff out, maybe that is what's driving the fact that they're keeping it very close to the vest. And so somebody who is not familiar with the books at all, they'll be able to explain it as they start to broaden the contents of the Imperium and the possibilities of what things are out there. So that remains to be seen. Let me know in the comments if you've got a theory, or if you think that maybe it is it's an Ixian device that he somehow has got a hold of, and he is a Gola. But that would sound like the Ixians and the Tleilaxu are in cahoots, and that's, I don't know, that's not a classic alliance between the two of them. But again, maybe times change. Maybe they started off as like, let's collaborate and try to control the Imperium, and then they have a falling out, and then they hate each other, and then the Tleilaxu invade and occupy Ix. I don't know. We'll see. Anything, I guess, is possible. So yeah, overall, I'm enjoying it. It's a slow burn, and it remains to be seen. I mean, at the end of 6 episodes, we'll be like, okay, now we're looking at all these puzzle pieces, and we're like, wow, this is great. It fits together. Or we're like, I don't know. I mean, they were just kind of dragging their feet, and then it didn't go anywhere. I'm hoping that's not the case. But I love anything related to Dune, at least a little bit, and having more stories in the Dune universe. I'm a big fan of. So I'm hoping that, hoping it keeps getting better and better, and that there's several seasons and maybe other shows. More Dune. Bring it on. I'm ready for it. That's it for this one, everyone. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again soon.